Welcome, everyone, and welcome to tip number 4. And today we just want to focus quickly on becoming a champion for diversity. And I specifically use the word champion because when we think about diversity and inclusion, we think about those students, those persons, those individuals who are excluded, pushed aside, who are not included. And and so when we look at ourselves as advocates and educators and our role in inclusion, it is it is true that our students need champions, need advocates, need persons who are going to go there for them, speak on their behalf, make sure they are included, make sure that things are provided for them and they gain that access that is necessary and needed. And I really want to take this few minutes to really focus on four quick things. And I think this camera is affecting what I'm putting on. Okay, good. Um, is that we want to make sure that as champions, and I know I've said this in my first two, and I want to keep repeating it, is that the first thing we do is that we evaluate our personal biases, prejudice, and we have that have impacted our view and understanding of otherness. Far too many of us, like I've said before, are doing the work, so to speak, of inclusion, but we have not taken the time out to unpack who we are. We have not taken time out to examine our own prejudice, our own biases, our own um, 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 positionality, and where we come from, and our history and our experiences that will impact how we see difference, how we see inclusion, how we feel about what's happening around us. So we have to make sure that self reflection is done properly and engaged. And we need to be unpacking our stereotypes and the unconscious biases that impact our own perceptions. And we work against our efforts to create a more inclusive and equitable work environment. So, what is it that is affecting you as a champion to do the work of a champion? Have you done that unpacking? And so that is important. And then we have to know how to go out there to identify the patterns of discrimination and inequalities and injustice in our community and provide ways to address them, tangible ways. We are moving away from the idea that it's going to be a paper document. I've said this many times to you. I am really, sometimes I feel like I'm documented out and policy out and paper out and green paper. And I know you may hear that frustration in my voice because I've done this work for so long. And equity and diversity is big now. But I was telling someone I've been doing this work from 1996, 1994, 5, 6, 1994 is when I went to my first UNESCO workshop. 1994, yes, my first UNESCO workshop on special education in school and looking how do we include students who have been marginalized and pushed aside. So this work is not new. But we have come a long way. And so we have to make sure we can identify the patterns of discrimination and inequalities within our school. Sometimes we don't know what access looks like, and we don't know what access denied, what that looks like. So we need to know that as champions, so we know what we are championing. And we have to develop personal action plan to acquire the skills that we need to do the work that we need as individuals. And that's very, very important. So becoming a champion, we talk about that already. Self-awareness, awareness of others. How do we create access on opportunities? There's one thing I want to talk about in this few minutes is how are you creating access and opportunity within your classroom. So if you forget anything that I've said in the preamble and the first part, the two, number 3 and number 5, is where I want us to take our thinking today. How do we create access and opportunities within your classroom and be intentional and deliberate about inclusion? So that is it, because we're stuck. We are really stuck. And if you ask me, we are really stuck with the ideas of the check boxes. We are really stuck with the ideas of, how do we do this? We're really stuck at that. And so we have to be intentional and deliberate about the opportunities and access we create. And so, of course, self-reflection, we said, is very important. I really like this quote that I've talked about many times before about the idea of really understanding who you are as a person, the importance and the value of self-awareness. And to be self-aware, you need to understand how you were socialized and what influences made you the person you are today. You need to know your cultural identity, your values. You need to understand your perceptions and how they are formed and how they influence who you are and how and what you communicate. And I did this specifically because so many of our students are from, so many of you, our students, are from very privileged spaces. And so, yes, you don't understand some of these lived experiences, but you have to understand how do you think and how you think and understand where your thinking comes from and how that is formed and how to unpack some of that, how to own some of that, and so how you can use that power and privilege and access to create opportunities for others. And that's what it's really is about. How do we use that to create access and opportunity for others, right? And so we have to aware in the engage in the awareness of others. We talk about that. Know who your students are. Do you know who your students are? Do you really do? Right? Know who your students are. And how do you create that access for them and that opportunity for them? And I would say to you, as I said before, that anything that you do have to be, your actions have to be deliberate and intentional. They have to be deliberate and intentional. It is about creating access and opportunities. I'm using that word again, to be intentional about what you do. So, as a champion, take the time out to know who you are. What kind of champion are you? What are you passionate about? What are your advocacy? What is your advocacy about? And when it comes to your classroom practice, who are the students you are teaching? How do you create that awareness, that access, that engagement, that opening for your students to ensure that they have what they need to be amazing? So as we think about this quick tip about being a champion, I leave that with you, is about creating access and opportunities. And don't always look for big policy papers to do that. As a teacher today, as a teacher, you walk in the classroom, what can you do more? Sometimes it's just listening to your students. Sometimes it's making sure that they see themselves around the classroom. Sometimes it's allowing them to share more. Sometimes it's taking down your posters and your work on the wall and putting up their voices, their creativity, their ideas. Let them see themselves. Sometimes the access is just making sure you see them, you hear their story, they tell you about their day and their weekend. It's about that. Sometimes in your classroom, that is what access looks like. That's what opportunity looks like. Taking time out to say to the principal, we need to step up our technology in the school. How can we do a event, a fundraising? How do we access more technology for our students? You know, the other day I went to a school that was like, you know, a Star Trek, room on Star Trek. Everything is just amazing. So much Google Classroom and iPads and Chromebooks and this and that. And I went to another school the same week, another school, and it's like a desert. It's like dry, dry. When I say dry, dry because of lack of. So yeah, we are not all the same, and that's why we talk about equity, and that's why we talk about the idea of equity. And so we need champions. We need champions for all these reasons. We need champions for all the students who are disenfranchised, marginalized, excluded, pushed back the edges. We need champion because some of us, like yourself, because I hear you, you are frustrated with the continuous pretense and checkbox phenomena that is plaguing EDI and equity and inclusion. So we need champions to speak up, speak out, but also to act. That's what I'm all about. Our champion acting. That all these students lined up with these school bags, all these students feel that I came to school today and I was engaged. My teacher saw me and I had an amazing day at school today. And my teacher is a champion. So that's what it's all about, being intentional and being deliberate about inclusion.